Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, free site, dwyersportsbetting.com, free site. Today is January the 16th, 2018. Let's talk about the NFC championship game and the AFC championship game. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let me just also lick my wounds here publicly. For last week, I thought the best play on the board, just in general, I thought the sleeper team in these playoffs were the New Orleans Saints. And let's just say what a difference a play makes, right? I was looking at winning the game outright, and I had money on New Orleans getting 3.5 points. Later in the week, I got them at 4.5. I got them at 5.5. Right, the line was moving in the direction of the Vikings at kickoff. The Saints were literally about to win the game. Then you had the Stephon Diggs bomb take place. Lost to 3.5, lost to 4.5. More importantly, won the 5.5, which I shouldn't have won. Let's face it, they should have kicked the extra point. The league needs to think about gamblers at moments like that. But let's just say that I thought that Drew Brees would have a much better shot in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady than Case Keenum, than Nick Foles. Right? I also thought that if there was a year where a fourth seed would have a shot to run the table and get into the Super Bowl, I thought it was this year, right? Understand, the Vikings, in their last 3 games, kept 2 of the 3 teams to less than 20 first downs. Here in a nip and tuck game in Minnesota, the Saints get 23 first downs. The Saints start the game slowly. I thought it was clear in the second half they were the better team, right? Latavius Murray, nothing against him, but I would much rather see Ingram and Kamara coming out of the backfield as a rushing attack than Latavius Murray, right? Also, you know, I'm a big fan of Mike Zimmer, the head coach of the Vikings, but at the same time, I like the idea of Sean Payton already having a ring, right? In any event, the Saints lost, so it goes. We went with the underdog there, and I'm still dealing with the loss. So let's talk about the NFC Championship game. And I want people to recognize that gambling is dangerous. There are going to be some games, some plays that happen, like the ending of that Viking-New Orleans Saints game. Now here, I can't believe the line, right? I simply cannot believe the line. You mean to tell me that with the 1 seed, the home team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and just understand, playing at home in a conference final in NFL history has been a huge bonanza for home teams, right? They win more than 60% of the time. That's history, right? Also keep in mind that 2 of the Vikings' losses this year, Vikings are an indoor team. 2 of the losses were outdoors on grass, right? They lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. They lost to the Carolina Panthers in Carolina, right? Well, this game's going to be played outdoors in Philadelphia. The Vikings, let's just say they're not in love with the idea of playing outside on grass. Well, I think they're going to have problems here against a team with a lot of depth, right? Think about Philadelphia for a moment. Just think about the rushing attack. You have Ajayi, you also have LeGarrette Blount, don't you? Let me also point out, too, that Philly, dominant defense, just like Minnesota, right? Did you know in Philly's last 3 games, they haven't given up 20 first downs in any game? Right? They haven't in any game, and this includes games against teams like the Atlanta Falcons last week, right? Julio Jones, Sanu, Matt Ryan, all this talent. The Dallas Cowboys, right? Ezekiel Elliott, he's back, right? He was back for that game. Ezekiel Elliott and Dez Bryant and Jason Witten, Dak Prescott, right? So against these teams that aren't wallflowers offensively, understand Philly's defense showed up every game. So to my utter amazement, apparently the odds makers have made the Vikings 3.5-point favorites in Philly. You've got to be kidding me. Folks, I'm expecting a defensive struggle where these teams are going to try to run the football. In a defensive struggle outdoors in cold weather, where teams are trying to run the football. Again, Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, Latavius Murray, right? This isn't the indoor type setup that you had for the Saints against the Vikings, right? And even in that game, no team hit 30 points, right? This is outdoors in cold weather. Well, in this setup, I'm expecting a low-scoring game. The 3.5 is a lot of points. Not only that, the 3.5 is more than a field goal, right? That hook is devastating. Now, let me offer some advice here, because keep in mind, we want to make money long-term. You want to make as much as you can based on the risk. I want listeners to consider, rather than taking Philly and getting 3.5 points, I want listeners and viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, right? I want listeners to consider taking the Eagles on a futures play. Understand, right now you can get the Eagles at 7-1 to win it all. Let me repeat that, 7-1 to win it all. So the way I like to play situations like this, where I think the home team is getting dissed, where people for some reason are overlooking Philadelphia's defense. For some reason they're overlooking the emotional letdown the Vikings might have after winning a game that had a miracle ending, right? You can imagine Stephon Diggs right now is part of Vikings folklore. At what point is he going to be able to focus on playing the Philadelphia Eagles on the road, right? You can punch in a lot of the Vikings and say, okay, Case Keenum has just won a miracle game. Mentally, is he now going to be able to switch up and focus on a very tough opponent? In fact, a higher seeded opponent. So if you believe that the Eagles at home in an NFC championship game against an indoor team that's already suffered 2 losses on the road, on grass, including one in the state of Pennsylvania, if you believe the Eagles are a good bet in the game, then why not multiply your possible winnings? If you feel the Eagles are going to win, why not take them at 7-1 to win the whole thing? And if they win this game, then next week, then in the Super Bowl, week after next week, right, you can bet against them and get the leverage. In other words, if I bet $10 at 7-1 on the Eagles to win the whole thing, right? Eagles only have 2 games left, folks, if they win, right? If I bet $10 at 7-1 and the Eagles win this game, I'm looking at possible winnings of $70 off a $10 investment. So at that point, it's house money. I can turn around and say, you know what? I'm going to take the AFC representative, likely the Patriots. I'm going to take the Patriots, and I'm going to lay, I expect the Patriots to be favored over the Eagles if the two make it to the Super Bowl. And I'm going to lay $30. Right? What's the harm? Because either the Patriots win the Super Bowl, in which case you get the $10 back that you bet on the Eagles, you get the $30 back that you bet on the Patriots, and you get extra money. Or the Eagles win the Super Bowl, in which case you lose the $30 that you bet on the Patriots, but guess what? You actually net $40 off the transaction because you were able to lock in 7-1 before the NFC Championship game. So I like the Eagles getting 3.5 points. I also like the Eagles at 7-1 to win it all. Right? Those are the two bets I'm recommending in the NFC. Now in the AFC, I believe the best team in these playoffs are the New England Patriots. Right? But here again, somehow you're supposed to lay 9.5 points. 9.5 against one of football's best defenses. I don't get it. Trust me, I'm not filling in Blake Bortles' name on my Pro Bowl ballot. I know he's a limited quarterback. Also, I understand that Leonard Fournette has a tender ankle. Right? He gets banged up. I agree with all of that. But wow, 9.5 points? 9.5 points against this Jacksonville defense? Not only that, gamblers need to consider what happens if either team scores first. Right? If the Jaguars score first, right? Let's think it through. This game's going to take on a different shape. Right? The idea of New England winning by 9.5 points, almost double digits, would be preposterous. Right? Also, because it's an AFC championship game, if you're New England and you're winning by 14 points, right, late in the game, aren't you going to be thinking about the Super Bowl? Even if you're 14 points better than the Jaguars, and I don't think the Patriots are, but even if you were 14 points better than the Jaguars, isn't your goal going to be to play the kind of vanilla defense where the Jags might score a meaningless touchdown in terms of the outcome of the game? But you're still headed for the Super Bowl because a lot of time came off the clock. Understand that meaningless touchdown could give a gambler who's gotten 2.5 points north of a touchdown in terms of a point spread the win in this game. Right? I'm not sure if New England, even if they're up big late, is going to try to close the door and engage in a high-risk defense or a high-risk offense. Right? To put an exclamation point on the game. What Brady and Belichick care about are rings, not margin of victory in an AFC championship game. Let me also say, too, the Jags have been playing spectacular defense. How many points did Buffalo score? Right? Now, I'll agree, the Steelers came back in that game. But let's be real here. The Jags always had the lead in that game. Right? So, I like the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game in which I expect the Patriots to win. I like the Jacksonville Jaguars getting 9.5 points in the AFC Conference Final. Right? Let me also add, too, that the Patriots have had a lot going on behind the scenes. Right? Josh McDaniel, apparently, according to reports, is going to be the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Matt Patricia, according to reports, is going to be the next head coach of the Detroit Lions. Right? Let's just say some of the stories show further turmoil. Right? An in-house discussion on what to do with Jimmy Garoppolo before Garoppolo gets traded away for a second-round pick to the San Francisco 49ers. Right? Possible disagreements between Belichick and Robert Kraft. Right? Before that, there was a disagreement between Belichick and Tom Brady concerning Tom Brady's fitness guru. Right? With that kind of turbulence, the Patriot performance might not be as precise and as focused as this 9.5 point spread suggests. So in the AFC this weekend, for the AFC Championship game, I like the Jacksonville Jaguars getting 9.5 points. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. Thanks for stopping by.